Isa Kyutan. Welcome to Asian Agribiz podcast. Today, Arif Faharuddin is speaking to Dr. Diana Bogueva, manager of the Center for Advanced Food Engineering at the University of Sydney in Australia, about healthiness and safety of plant-based protein and her new book, Food in a Planetary Emergency.
Hello, Dr. Diana.
Hi, Arif. How are you? Thank you for inviting me.
I'm doing very well. Thank you for joining this podcast. Let's start with the introduction of yourself and your involvement or interest in the plant-based protein sector.
My name is Dr. Diana Bogueva, and currently I'm Center Manager for the Center for Advanced Food Engineering at the University of Sydney, and also I'm an adjunct researcher with Curtin University Sustainability Policy Institute, which is in Western Australia. This university, Curtin University, is based in Western Australia. My interest in alternative proteins started probably 4 or 5 years ago when I was completing at the end of completion of my PhD. And actually because my PhD was related to the area of finding more sustainable way to eat with thought about the planet, about the human health, and particularly this was focused on the reduction of meat consumption, because we know that meat is one of the detrimental products that are contributing to the big footprint of greenhouse gas emissions. We can talk about this later, but I started looking at alternative proteins as a way of finding alternative to the reduction of meat consumption. And this is how I started. I was interested in plant-based first, and after that insects, cultured meat. So basically this was a research that I've done around these 3 alternatives. In particular, I was interested and still interested in consumer perception of all of these alternatives. And this is how I started, from simple interest, and this continued to grow right now and still growing.
Interesting. Dr. Diana, beyond taste, texture, and price, healthiness and safety are also an important aspect for the plant-based protein industry in designing the next generation of plant-based protein. Please explain about the aspect and why producers must consider it.
Because it is really a growing industry. We know that the global market of plant-based alternatives is really kind of increasing the previous kind of parameters, and now it is forecasted to reach $85 billion by 2030. This is American dollars. And just for your audience, this is a huge increase because 4 years earlier, in 2018, it was projected to grow up to 4.6 billion American dollars. You see a huge kind of difference of what is projected right now. And this popularity obviously increases, and questions, of course, will emerge about the safety and nutritional risk that could be involved in switching from our, say, omnivorous diets of majority of people. They prefer to eat meat to a more plant-based diet. In Australia, analysts projected that also alternative proteins could add around 3 billion more to the Australian economy by 2030. And Australia is not so big in alternative proteins, it's just emerging market. But we can see in each country, this is growing, while plant-based meat alternatives are a step in the right direction. Of course, there are concerns because consumers think that they're highly processed alternatives and they may compromise health and nutrition. But you know, thinks about, you know, different aspects of this food safety and nutrition of plant-based alternatives. We have to think about different kinds of chemical, microbial contaminants in the ingredients used, food adulteration issues. This is whatever is added to the product to look and feel like it is high level of food additives, the use of genetically modified ingredients. This is particularly actually valuable for America, where they use genetically modified soy, and other places in the world as well. Also mislabeling, because some of the ingredients, if they are under a certain percentage, they don't need to be placed into the label, you know, as part of the ingredients. And also these alternatives and the ingredients that are used to be produced, they could be new sources of allergens and different to bring toxic, you know, ingredients that are not suitable for human, despite that many vitamin, minerals, and other things are added. This could also lead to some deficiency, because if they're not complete, like for example conventional meat, this could also add to, you know, change of a protein quality of the product that's presented by the producers. These are all critical issues that needs to be considered by industry when developing their next generation of plant-based foods. Basically, this is to ensure that they're safe and nutritious, as well as good for the environment. And all of these aspects, as you mentioned, that we need to consider the aspects there because of the industry effort for mimicking the kind of obtaining the desired look, the feel, the taste, the texture, the mouthfeel, the color, the plant-based alternative to bleed like meat, and all the desirable quality attributes of real meat. It starts from choosing the right ingredients, the product formulation, then mixing with various functional ingredients, including flavoring, coloring, emulsifiers, texture modifiers, gelling agent, binding agent, preservatives, even sometimes sweeteners, and all of this. So you can imagine that all of these things that are added could cause some issues.
Okay, with that explanation, what are the modern food science approaches that producers can use to improve healthiness and safety of their plant-based proteins? This is
difficult to answer, because actually all of the producers at the moment, they have like key mission to deploy innovative technology which to contribute to these issues that we are currently having with our food system. So negative effects on the planet due to significant amount of greenhouse gas emissions, deforestation to grow crops for both animals and human, and land degradation. And actually the other issue is a negative effect on human health due to overconsumption of ultra-processed food. We know that this is a trend all around the world, particularly in the Western countries, but also the Asian markets. Like the developing Asian market now is starting to follow the steps of the Western cultures and eating what is, you know, the traditional diet of the Western societies. They're actually looking at diversification of protein sources. I'll give an example again with my own country, Australia, we have an incredible production system and lots of varieties of proteins, and actually all other, like the mixture of protein sources sometimes is good if we're looking to provide a range of proteins that are good for us, and they could be free from a range of issues like allergy-free, lactose-free, gluten-free, and other things, you name it, but at the same time, we have to be careful. I mean, the producer needs to be careful with redefining meats as a product, like as an alternative proteins, because sometimes you can't replicate the complex molecular structure and composition of food of animal origin, like the muscles and everything. And we know that they're trying to, but it's kind of a very difficult task, and they have to approach it very carefully, just not to have any side effects in the future.
Let's talk about your new book, Food in a Planetary Emergency. It stated that going plant-based is a simple but powerful choice for consumers. Tell us more about this.
We are at the cusps of changing the way we produce food, and we are trying to do this in a new and exciting way, like with alternatives and other stuff. But we know we need, to change in a way that existing industrial food production systems be transformed, because recently investors, policymakers, farmers, agribusinesses, and health specialists, they know, and they already started to acknowledge the current system of food production neither sustainable for the environment based on any healthy dietary behavior. The challenges posed by current practices are substantial. Food systems are responsible for the third of global anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions, and eating habits are contributing to avoidable health problems. We also know that animal-derived foods, particularly red and processed meats, have the largest impact on the environment. I mentioned this before, but this is impact on land use, greenhouse gas emissions, biodiversity loss, and can contribute to the development of non-communicable diseases, which we see every single day in our societies, like diabetes, cancer, and cardiovascular diseases, high cholesterol, and anything. In response, we know that novel food products are part of this response, but also I think that if we go back to the good knowledge of our past and eat more fresh fruit, veggies, legumes, and pulses, and grains, and whatever we were used to it before, I think that we'll be much healthier. We'll be contributing to the best of our environment possible.
Also, in the book, there are food choices that can help the planet. Switching to flexitarianism and consuming beans, pulses, and alternative proteins are choices number 1 and 2. Why?
Because consistently health, the environment, and animal welfare, actually, these are the most important reason people to reduce their meat consumption. This is particularly, visible among young people. Sorry. Numerous well-publicized studies from health authorities, including the World Health Organization, Eat Lancet Commission, and other recommended actually eating less meat for better health and to combat chronic diseases, which I mentioned already. It appears actually in many Western countries, consumers including also those in Australia, New Zealand, Germany, and other places, Switzerland, they're getting the message because health is actually becoming #1 priority and #1 reason they choose to eat less meat, and to be kind of closely followed, you know, the way that we have to be more healthier, like, and moving away from it is the trend. We not only see, especially among young people, but also, in fact, it's a great source actually of optimism, because if we see this among young people and now followed by their parents and grandparents, I'm not sure influenced by them or not, but I think that this is going to, you know, to change the way we eat, because going flexitarianism, which is a diet that is comprised predominantly of plant-based foods, this diet actually does not cut out any food group entirely, but it will drastically reduce greenhouse emission. Adopting more plant-centric diet is actually, even only in the high-income countries like Australia, United States, and other, even they are accounting only for 70% of the global population, could cut greenhouse gas emissions substantially by around 61%, and also will increase carbon sequestration, which is what we want. And flexitarianism, or voluntary reduction in the consumption of animal-based proteins, is actually a trend of people to reduce their consumption, but also is an example of a niche behavior. For example, in a country like Australia, which has one of the world's highest level of meat supply on a per capita basis, around 100 kilograms per person per year. There is mounting evidence that meat, and particularly red meat, is detrimental for the natural environment. I mentioned this at the beginning of our conversation. It has much higher greenhouse gas emissions compared to plant-based options, take up disproportionately more land, represents an inefficient energy protein conversion in the supply of food, and is potentially a cancerogenic. In 2015, the World Health Organization was classifying it as level 2, close to asbestos. You don't want to eat asbestos, you know, kind of cancerogenic foods. And actually, flexitarianism acts as a disruptor to the current unsustainable food preferences and the innovations of the alternative proteins market. We talk about facilitate its diffusion, if we want to say it this way, that is broader adoption. This is also facilitated through development, experimentation, and innovation of novel plant-based analogs of familiar animal source foods such as sausages, mince, nuggets, even mayonnaise, cheese, cultured meat, plant-based milk. All of this actually is a kind of a good trend, because this is helping actually people to reduce, to see their diet and the things that they eat in a different way. You know, we are not sure in a long run if this is going to be successful, but at the moment is an alternative, people at least to change their mind. And how they will do it, it's up to them. We can't, because you know, basically food are very important part of human existence, like culturally, socially. It's something that every single culture perceives in a different way, and we have to respect this cultural heritage of eating and the way we eat.
Well, thank you very much for your great explanation. I believe the information is useful for plant-based protein producers as well as consumers in Asia. Thank you, Dr. Diana.
Thank you very much, Arif, and thank you again for inviting me to be with your audience and you.
Thank you for listening to another Asian Agribiz podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to this show on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your podcasts.